This episode is rated M for mature audiences. The views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect those of the PFC Entertainment Network or any of the affiliates that make this show possible.
This is the Pure Fury Creations Entertainment Network.
Bueller.
Now this baby hits 88 miles per hour. You're gonna see some serious...
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Inconceivable. He's slimy. Get to the chopper!
Nobody puts baby in a corner.
I'll be back. Wax on, wax off. Go ahead. Make my day. Sweep the leg.
They're here.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Don't mess with the bull, young man. You'll get the horns.
This is Power Trippin' Through the 80s with Jason Klaus and Sean Grudel on the PFC Entertainment Network. And welcome you to Power Trippin' Through the 80s here on the PFC Entertainment Network. Along with Jill Bain, I'm Jason Klaus. We certainly appreciate you tuning in here this week, and hopefully, if I can do it just right, you will have missed the snafu that I knew it too. I goddamn knew it. I'm like, not this one. Not this one. And I hit that one anyway. And I'm like, God damn. As soon as the lightning flashes went across the sky, I'm like, nope. I did it again. Anyway, but hey, that's the magic of post-production. Hopefully I can cut that out and no one's the wiser. If you're hearing this, you have no shitting idea what I'm talking about. I'm hoping that that's the case. Jill, good to see you this week. We had something, you and I, it seems like we've been corresponding a lot here lately. You know, in the public realm. We did a very special big announcement live stream this past weekend to announce the full-time edition and the future plans of your show, Creepy Soup. To bring everybody up to speed, if you are not in the loop on that, Creepy Soup is going to be expanding to 2 days a week starting this week. You will be recording one episode with original co-host Jenny Ostrom, who has made her return to the show. And then the big announcement was the new day that you will be recording on a regular basis with your daughter Judy, who is now a full-time, full member of the PFC Entertainment Network family, and we are so pleased to have her on board on a regular basis. I gotta believe she's pretty excited about that, right?
Yeah, the day the announcement was made, that was probably, I would say, a good 90, other than planning dinner, it was probably a good 95% of our conversations that day. So yeah, super excited. And then we had recorded that night. So we talked about it. So yeah, she's just been just so excited. So excited.
I'm really glad to hear that. And, you know, also along those lines, we're happy to have Jenny back. You know, she's been on hiatus for quite some time. And, you know, it's good that she's at a place now in her personal life that she can start to focus back on the show. And, you know, I know a lot of long-time established fans of the show are, you know, they're excited to have her back. So, but, you know, just to give everybody ample opportunity and to make the best of the situation, we decided to expand Creepy Soup. It's now going to become, you know, you're going to get it 2 days a week now. That's a lot on your plate, but I feel like, you know, if anybody's going to be able to pull this off, it's you. So
Thank you.
bless your heart. for
You know,
what's
like we
fixing
were
to come.
talking, and I don't remember if it was during the live or afterwards. And we were talking about like the 2 episodes and like how right now I'm filling in for Sean, how it's a lot, but not, I'm thinking not really. Yeah, it's time, but other than doing research, I don't consider this work. It's not, I mean, when you're doing research, a deep dive on a story, yeah, that can be time consuming and some work. But if you love your topic and you are excited about your topic, it's not work.
Absolutely, and I could not agree with that more. Because it was I believe while we were doing the live stream, it was, and then I said it on there, and I know we've had personal conversations about this. If you love what you do, you never
Mhm.
work a day in your life.
Yeah.
It was during the live stream because I was using our shoot job as an example. This is not what we want to do for the rest of our lives.
Right, right, right.
We do it because it pays the bills. That's the end of it. That's
Hmm.
the end of my commitment to it and all this because we're wasting our time and our talents by making a evil empire, the billion-dollar corporation that it is, completely out of touch with reality. I don't mind telling you. We do, that is not our calling.
Hmm.
This is, and we're going to make a valiant effort going into the new year because as we're recording this, next week starts officially, even though mine started on November 1st, I don't mind telling you. Next week starts the holiday season.
Hmm.
And with the holidays, like that trek to the new year is like it goes fast, real fast. And I have been going through the different shows here on the network and kind of doing a deep dive into all of it. What's working, what's not, what shows are going to be moving on into the new year, which ones are not. There are a few that are not on the docket for the new schedule that's coming up. It's not anybody's fault. It's just a number of different things taken into consideration.
Hmm.
Timing and scheduling and things of this nature. And then I have to look at the numbers. What's resonating? What are people dialing into?
Right.
So some tough choices have had to be made, but um, it's all part of the process to get this network where the hell I want it to be. I mean, you're either on board, and if you are on board, it's going to be full steam ahead because I'm not allowing anybody to half-ass anything. My
Right.
fucking name is on this thing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I do not fuck around with this, and I
Mm.
will not.
Yeah.
So your show, it was your guys's was the first one I really started incorporating because of the unique fan base that you have established. Your genre is unlike anything else that we do on this network, and so that was my first target. I'm like, all right, and I sat you guys down, or we were on a conference call. I'm like, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I would like to have happen, and give me your feedback, and this is what we come up with.
Hmm.
So much to the delight of your fans, they're the ones that wind up being the big winners because they get 2 episodes now a week. So
Yeah.
love that for them.
Yeah. I'm excited to see how it goes and just to do what I do.
So before we get into the topic here this week, and it's going to be a kind of more of a unique topic. I do have a list that Jill actually had sent me. I'm not going to go through all of the things on here, but there are key articles of interest that we're going to talk about in relation to these urban legends and these reports of drama and all this other shit that have gone on behind the scenes for some of our favorite movies and TV shows, pop culture type of gimmicks. Before we get there, though, um, the 80s were very much on display and talked about this past Friday. Um, with this fight between Iron Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. Streaming on Netflix, it was Netflix's first big endeavor into a live streaming on this magnitude. Um, and with that, with the hype and all that, like they really dialed heavily into Tyson's career, his boxing career as heavyweight champion of the world, and that happened during the '80s and going into the '90s. He was the heavyweight champion of the world from 1987 to 1990. But and still remain relevant. But Mike Tyson was part of pop culture. Like he reestablished boxing on a global platform. Um, did you tune into this fight? Did you get caught up in all the hoopla and everything like that?
I mean, like, we had conversations. There's a bunch of us that sit out at the picnic table, like, before and after work, and we kind of we're bullshitting. And, of course, the slap during the weigh-in and what led to that. But I didn't watch it, or, let's see, I think I was listening to an audiobook Friday. I didn't, but people around me had their Netflix going, and I was hearing the cheers for the different matches prior to that one. And I think when we were sitting out at the picnic table after work, I don't know, I want to say they were in round 3 of the main event, but I didn't watch
It
it.
started. I don't think they got out there till after the 11 o'clock hour.
Yeah.
It was a wound up being a 4-hour show, and we knew Tyson was going to be in the last match. The girls' fight, undisputably the fight of the night. Those two girls beat the fuck out of each other, and it was a rematch from another a fight that they had a couple of years ago in New York, and I remember that fight. So I was real excited to see that they were going to have their rematch here. By all accounts, and we're not going to do a deep dive into this, but by the majority of the of accounts from a business standpoint, the numbers that I saw, because I'm a numbers guy, this was a very successful endeavor for Netflix, for the promoters who put this card together. The WBC sanctioned everything, which was a big deal. And 74,000 inside the stadium,
Wow.
$148,000 gate, or $148 million gate, or something along those lines. So by those metrics, this was a very successful outing. However, Netflix found out real quick they need to expand their servers if they're going to continue this, because on Christmas Day they are streaming live 2 NFL games, and one of which features the Kansas City Chiefs, the reigning Super Bowl champions, and of course you've got the Taylor Swift effect in with this, right?
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you, if Netflix runs into the same buffering issues with these 2 football games that they had during the Mike Tyson fight, they are going to their business model took a hit. A lot of people canceled their subscriptions after Friday night. They were just so fed up with it. And I'm here to tell you, you start fucking with an NFL fan, and that's their only way to see these games, you're really going to see that needle go backwards if they don't get this shit together. They're doing all of this in preparation. They want to do more live events, because I told you they're bringing Monday Night Raw to Netflix on January 6th, and that's a live weekly broadcast. Now they're not going to bring the same numbers as a Mike Tyson fight or an NFL game, but it's still a considerable number. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Start fucking with wrestling fans. That's a whole nother, because we're passionate. We don't give a fuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, just curious to see if you bought into the hoopla, because like the anticipation of it was great, but the delivery of the fight itself was a drizzling shit. So I don't mind telling you.
See, and you know what? Not having watched the fight, like, they came to the conclusion they came to with Jake Paul winning. I didn't see it, but while sitting at the table, I'm like, is he hitting Tyson? Nope. Is Tyson hitting him? Yup. So I don't know how they came to the decision, but I kind of feel like really this guy, no matter what the outcome was, really couldn't win. He either was going to get his ass beat by an older man or he was going to beat up an older man. So
Right.
to me, there's like no clear win. And I was looking earlier at like some of the people that he has went up against, and the ones he won against were all older. And the person that beat him was younger. So I don't know, maybe I don't know.
This thing was as manufactured, for the lack of a better term,
Hmm.
as a professional wrestling show. Straight up. They had this script written, like, because of what you just. Jake Paul wasn't a no-win situation, but he's going to be the guy that moves on and continues on. Tyson, he has alluded that he's going to go back into the ring and have another fight, and that's great. But I don't know if it'll be the same payday that he got with this one, because this was his first time being in a sanctioned fight in 20 years.
Yeah.
And that unto itself, I know it was not my intention to go deep into this, but this was a clear example of promotion at its best,
Yeah.
but execution at its worst. And it's left a lot of different opinions based on how you view this whole thing.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see what happens next. Boxing needed this card, though. Boxing has been so overshadowed by the MMA, UFC and all that stuff. They really needed this card to be successful analytically.
Yeah.
Now the promoters, they cashed fat ass paychecks. They didn't give a fuck who won the fight.
Right.
But us as fans, like my dad was watching this. He hasn't watched boxing in 20 years since
Yeah.
Tyson, was champion and what have you. Um, he got excited about it until the fucking fight happened. And then he's, what is this? I'm like, this is Promotions 101, my friend. Like, now they might as well just dropped in WWE banners over the top of the ring and all that stuff, because that's what it turned into from my estimation.
Right.
But be that as it may. Um, Switching gears here, and before we get into the main event of this week's show, I look on here, Jill. We're at episode 98 of this program. We're 2 weeks away from episode 100. I'm confident. I should say that we're going to be able to get Sean in on this for episode 100, because it just wouldn't be right without his involvement. But I really want to get you tied into, because of your fanfare for the show. You've sat in here for the last handful of weeks, and I have a couple of ideas. We're going to do an expanded game show type of format where it's going to be you versus Sean
Oh, that'll
in
be fun.
80s trivia. So that's what you have to look forward to in episode 100. That's coming up in 2 weeks' time. I can't believe it. But 2 weeks' time, we're going to be crossing over into triple digits here on this program. A lot of the shows here are approaching these different milestones, and I want to give every show, its flowers. You know what I mean? Not
Oh
for
yeah, for
me,
sure.
because it's all about the other hosts and things of this nature. So that's what you have to look forward to.
Okay,
So
I'm excited.
yeah, it's going to be real cool. Give me 1 second here. This. Sorry about that, but this was very time sensitive. Okay. we are going to be looking at a couple of these stories, tales, um, about things that happen on the sets of some of the more iconic movies and TV shows, pop culture type of things, like we mentioned. And again, Jill sent me this list, and some of these very interesting, and a couple of them I remember being a thing. Like, for example, and this is in no particular order. In 1987, we were treated with the movie Three Men and a Baby that starred Ted Danson, Steve Guttenberg, and Tom Selleck. And rumors started going around, and this is, before social media and all this, but there was fan theories that a ghost actually appears in one of the scenes, that was said to have, for the lack of a better term, haunted the set.
Mm-hmm.
This became much along the same kind of legendary status as the Oompa Loompa who hung himself during the filming of Wizard of Oz. Like, it started to take on that kind of feeling to it. When this movie came out, do you remember the buzz about this? And if you stopped it at just the right time of the VHS cassette, you could see what looked to be a boy kind of floating in the window behind Ted Danson. Do you remember this?
I do remember hearing that, but as someone who's never seen the movie,
You've never?
no,
To this day, you have not?
no. So let me explain a little bit why. And it took me a long time to really watch Cheers. Back in the early 80s, Ted Danson was in one of those made-for-TV movies where he played a dad who did some not so pleasant things to was either his daughter or stepdaughter, and I was still young enough where I didn't like him for years because of that role. He did it well.
Mm-hmm.
So for a long time, I wanted no part of anything that he was in, and that was around the time of Three Men and a Baby. I'm like, I don't want to see it. I don't like him. He's gross.
I appreciate that. And that's when you know an actor has done his job well, right?
Yep.
You look at some of the more iconic villains of the movies,
Mm-hmm.
and you think, what a piece of shit. And you wind up carrying that to every other film that he's in.
Yeah.
Because he did that role so well. Sometimes it's stereotypical. They never escape that role because they did it so well.
Right.
Well, that's not so and so because he was this guy. You know what I mean? But let me read real quick what the write up here is. If you were alive in the late 80s and 90s, there's a 98% chance someone told you about the ghost in Three Men and a Baby. A wild claim for sure, but there's no denying that if you pause the film during the scene, you will see the figure of someone looking on. Now, what it winds up being is it is a cardboard cutout of Ted Danson's character that he portrays in the movie that kind of got lost in the background and nobody took the time to clear the set before they filmed.
Yep.
So that was debunked. But that also goes into, because like I said, I remember this. There is a scene in The Wizard of Oz where it appears that all of a sudden, two little legs just drop out into the background of the scene, and it is believed that one of the actors who portrayed an Oompa Loompa hung himself. Do you believe in that theory? Did you get caught up in any of that at all, or no?
It's one I've heard of, and here's the thing. Remember, they used to air that every year,
Mm-hmm.
and then unfortunately they stopped. But it was a big thing in our house, and that is something. I don't know if I was just too young to pay attention to detail, and I probably haven't seen it since it aired yearly on TV. But I have heard about that, and it's made me want to find it and watch it to see if I can see it.
Sidebar. Have you ever watched The Wizard of Oz and played Dark Side of the Moon simultaneously?
Mm-mm.
Have you done this? Do you know about this?
I've heard of that too.
Okay. So that used to be an annual thing for us. Is a group of us. I grew up in Hadley, and there wasn't very many kids our age. So when the ones that were there, like we formed kind of like a rat pack
Mm-hmm.
in real life, right? One of our annual things that we would do, we would get fucked up and play Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon album in correspondence with the Wizard of Oz movie. And no shit, even though Roger Waters swears up and down it is a total coincidence of how that album was recorded, but what they're talking about in the album or what the vibe of the song is corresponds with what you're seeing on the screen. So as the scene changes, the song changes, like immediately, and it corresponds with the vibe and the feel of that scene. It is cool as fuck. But you got to start the album at a specific point of it was either the VHS or the DVD release. Once the MGM lion roars for the third time, you hit play on Dark Side of the Moon, and it corresponds with it. It's
That's
really kind of
crazy.
cool. Yeah. Maybe we should do that for the PFC network when they have a watch party. Just get all kinds of fucked up.
That would
So,
be awesome.
it would be. This is kind of a coincidence, just kind of how this all ties in with, what you do on Creepy Soup, what Creepy Soup is all about, and what we're talking about here on Power Tripping Through the 80s. The movie Ghost, big blockbuster success, stars Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore. Whoopi Goldberg won an Oscar for this in a supporting role as Oda Mae Brown.
Yep.
Great character, by the way. I don't mind telling you. Could you imagine Bruce Willis in the Patrick Swayze role? Because he actually
No.
turned this role down.
And I say good for him. I mean, I love Bruce Willis.
Mhm.
Absolutely love Bruce Willis. But that to me is not his kind of role.
I couldn't picture it either.
Mm-mm.
Now, you look back at the time, too. Ghost came out in 1990, so they would have filmed it in 89.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Willis had just got done with Die Hard 1, because that came out in 88, and he was still, he still had that show on ABC, Moonlighting, with Sybil Shepherd. And he had done a couple of other movies too that were trying to expand on his acting chops. But man, once Die Hard came out and it became the success that it did, he kind of switched over to that action adventure genre, right?
Yeah.
So him playing the Patrick Swayze role in Ghost, like the movie would not have been as successful because a lot of that, I feel like, was the female fanfare for Patrick Swayze, who was just 3 years removed from Dirty Dancing.
Yeah.
And that's what put him on the map, right?
Yeah.
So the whole dynamic would have been weird. However, in real life, Bruce Willis was married to Demi Moore.
Mm-hmm.
What would that have looked like on camera? You know what I mean? So you kind of take that into consideration too. But I just feel like it wouldn't have gotten the overall response that it did with Patrick Swayze.
Yeah, I agree. And I always see like Die Hard movies. Him either playing the action hero or the detective or something on those lines. But not, I mean, I have seen him as a love interest in a movie, but not that one. I could not see it.
Right. Yeah, it would have. just completely changed the dynamic. I don't know why this list keeps wiping out on me. I keep having to go back and refresh it. But 1987 also gave us the very controversial, very polarizing movie, Fatal Attraction. You familiar with this?
Mm.
Okay. This is the movie that legitimately had men rethinking a lot of shit in their personal lives because of just how the story unfolds and just how crazy Glenn Close portrayed her character in this. Opposite Michael Douglas, by the way. If you've watched the movie, you know how it ends. However, the original ending that was screened before the major theatrical release didn't see the ending play out the way that we would eventually. Even though it goes into ultimately the demise of Glenn Close's character, it left theater goers who watched the initial screening less than satisfied because they really wanted to see Michael Douglas, his character, do the deed. So the original didn't have it play out like that, and I couldn't imagine any other ending that would have been as satisfying as what we did see.
Right.
Because if you know that movie at all, if you haven't, if you don't know what we're talking about, it's worth a watch. Just don't watch it around kids because there's some pretty graphic scenes in this. I don't mean just from a sexual realm, but
Yeah.
like the boiling rabbit and all the spoiler. But that it's cool that they do shit like that, and just about every movie does this. I just watched a documentary on Back to the Future, and they had a pre-screening, and they did some tweaks along the way to make it the perfect movie that it was. This one was no exception. So I don't know where is Fatal Attraction at on your radar. Is that something that you will watch more than once? You have watched more than once, or was it a one and done type of thing?
I have seen it a couple of times. I haven't watched it, honestly, in years. But yeah, she plays an amazing psychopath.
Right. All right. In recent weeks here on the show, we've talked a little bit about E.T. and whether or not it should have a sequel. Well, apparently there was it almost had a sequel entitled E.T. Nocturnal Fears. Shortly after E.T. became the worldwide phenomenon in 1982, director Steven Spielberg, despite being famously adverse to making sequels, teamed with screenwriter Melissa Matheson to cook up an idea for a sequel. The result of their collaboration was a 9-page film entitled E.T. 2 Nocturnal Fears. In it, Elliot, Gertie, and Michael cross paths with evil carnivorous aliens who have come to Earth looking for E.T. The evil aliens hold the kids captive on their ship where they interrogate them about E.T.'s whereabouts and nearly kill Elliot with their razor-sharp teeth.
What?
In the end, E.T. returns to Earth to save the kids and banish the aliens. Absolutely
Not.
fucking not.
No, absolutely not.
As soon as you said, held the kids captive, and almost, I understand why they would have toyed with this, but I am so damn glad that they scrapped this project because this would have ruined the entire franchise. And
Oh,
we would not be
absolutely.
looking at E.T. the way that we do all these years later. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, yeah, that would have been not a good move for really anybody.
Mm-mm. and it really would have damaged the image of the original Alien.
Yeah.
You know, and I realize that's a dumb thing to say, and people are like, "It's a fucking alien. It's it's not real." But as far as that movie goes, that was the movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and having an evil version of ET is the ultimate mindfuck for me, and I will not wrap my head around it.
No.
I just cannot.
Nope.
Recently on the show, you revealed that you have a fanfare for mob movies.
Mm-hmm.
Where was Goodfellas at on that?
That top.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
What I
top.
thought. Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas had to be recut after people angrily stormed out of the test screening. Are you familiar with this?
I've not heard that. It must have been really, really bad.
Allow me to indulge. The problem? It was way too violent. In this version, for example, the infamous opening scene showed Joe Pesci's character stabbing the man in the trunk 10 times instead of the 4 seen in the final version. Scorsese told Entertainment Weekly this was a lesson in what an audience can tolerate. He recut the film, softening the violence, and leaned into the scenes with Joe Pesci and his mother, which audiences enjoyed and felt humanized Pesci's character. The changes worked. Goodfellas was nominated for 6 Academy Awards. Can I tell you that I've never seen this movie? I'm not a real big mob guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's, you know what? It's probably one of those movies. When it came out, I really didn't have an interest, but my husband watched it. And he watched it. Like, that's probably one of his, I would say, top 10 movies. And, you know, probably the second or third time he watched it, because he would watch movies and I would read books.
Mm-hmm.
And then it would be like I would read and then look up at the TV, and then next thing I know, I'm folding the page over and I'm putting my book down, and yeah. And I would say it was probably about 6 months ago, because I do a lot of audiobooks at work, and I had downloaded the book that Henry Hill wrote with, I can't think of the guy's name, Pileggi or something. And man, that was, usually they say if you watch the movie, then read the book. Or if you read the book first, don't watch the movie because it's never the same.
Mm-hmm.
That one, I would say, is very, very, very close. Yeah.
I've heard that comparison between the books and the movies primarily with Stephen King novels, because how many of his writings have been adapted into small screen or silver screen versions of it?
Many.
Yeah, Cujo is one that stands out, you know, because how the story goes in Cujo don't correlate with what they wind up doing in the movie. A number of his stories are like that. So, but me being me, you know, I use this with in comparison with like superhero movies. I am not a comic book guy.
Right.
Like I couldn't tell you what character debuted in what episode and what version of the multiverse and all this other shit. But I will sit and watch the movie based on what they're giving me. That's my expertise in it. That's what I dial into. So, you know, I can appreciate that. 1984, we had a movie called Splash. You familiar?
I've heard of it.
Didn't watch it? No. Is it because it was too far? There's just, we're dealing with a fucking mermaid here, right? Is it because the premise of it is just so out of the ordinary, you just didn't buy into it at all?
I think so. And but let me be clear. I will watch far-fetched movies. So, but I don't know, just the whole, all I can think of is, oh my God, what does this house smell like?
Well, for those who were fans of Splash, you will recall a famous scene involving one John Candy. This was the racquetball court scene. Allegedly, according to director Ron Howard, so I mean, if anybody knows, it's going to be Opie Cunningham, right? John Candy arrived late and drunk to film this scene because he had an impromptu run-in with none other than Jack Nicholson. Howard says the normally very professional Candy apologized, bellowing, "Here's what happened. I'm telling you the truth. I'm at the bar and Jack Nicholson is at the bar. Jack Nicholson knew my name. And he starts buying me drinks. I've got to go shoot." And he says, you're going to be all right, kid. Don't worry about it. And he kept buying me more drinks. I never went to bed. So that's fun. John Candy got to get fucked up on Jack Nicholson's dime and then shows up to film this iconic scene. That is funny.
That's amazing.
That's when you know you've arrived, right? When you got Hollywood royalty like Jack Nicholson that knows who you are, apparently appreciates what you're doing to the point to where he's going to sit there and break bread with you,
right?
Impromptu. So that's got to be kind of cool. No, we're not going to tackle that one because I don't give a fuck. The classic 80s comedy Revenge of the Nerds was almost remade in 2006, and the new version even got so far as to film briefly. That's all it tells me. It doesn't even give me a fucking write-up. I was interested in that, too. Much more so than something that happened on the Star Wars set. Anthony Michael Hall. Anthony Michael Hall is in the 80s. He was obviously very young. We grew up in this time. Before we would see him in Weird Science and Pretty in Pink and 16 Candles, he played Rusty Griswold in the original Vacation movie. And apparently, at the tender age of 14, Mr. Hall tried to sneak onto the set and watch the filming of Beverly D'Angelo's nude shower scene. And apparently got caught. But kind of fun when you think about that.
Yeah. Could you imagine, though, how embarrassed he must have been? And then, you got to continue to work.
Right. For sure. So that's
funny, though.
It is funny. What else do we got here? Yes. 1985's Teen Wolf with Michael J. Fox. This urban legend actually came across my radar a couple of years ago, and somebody had actually sent me a clip to back it up. Supposedly, a mischievous extra on the set. This is during the end basketball game where the Beavers won. They beat the Dragons in the championship, and Michael J. Fox was his actual self and not the Teen Wolf and all this other stuff. That real good, feel good moment. Well, if you do if you really focus in on the background when everybody is cheering, there appears to be an extra who actually pulls his penis out, and it is caught on film. Yeah, this is real because somebody, like I said, had sent me a clip of that scene, and they stopped it, circled it, and pointed. It actually has. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh my god!
You see there, right there? For those who are just listening to this and not watching the video presentation, consider yourself fortunate. Now, what they're trying to say here. A closer look at the moment indicates that the extra appears to be a woman, not a man, and visible beyond her unbuttoned pants is the white of underwear, not a private part. Still, regardless,
Yeah.
if you have an extra who's unzipping your pants during the filming of this thing, what the fuck are we doing? But I'm sorry, the scene that I got, because you know how things go nowadays, they will remaster anything. Anytime you see something remastered,
Mm-hmm.
is code word for we've gone in and taken out various clips and scenes that are deemed to be too polarizing, too controversial, even though it was part of our day-to-day in the 1980s. We've established this. The society we live in now is soft.
Mm-hmm.
They cannot handle this shit. So when they remaster, they're altering what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those cases. Because I'm here to tell you, the original video cassette of Teen Wolf does have this scene in there. And it is, without a shadow of a doubt, what you think it is. And so I'm not buying that, well, it was a woman.
Right.
Yeah, you may have superimposed a woman in there, but that is not what the original scene looked like in 1985.
Yeah.
But
that's
sneaky
actually one I've
motherfuckers.
never heard of.
No?
No. And I've seen Teen Wolf once when it came out because I would go to the theater on Wednesday nights when my dad was working downstairs, and that was one of them. And that would have been something like if my dad knew, he would not have allowed me to go see.
Yeah. Alright, what else we got here? Some of these are very interesting.
See, and like I saw the list because you know how like on your phone you got like the whole Google page of like headlines and stuff. That actually was in my Google News, and I opened it and I'm like, "Ooh, I'm gonna send this to Jason," but I didn't look at it.
There's some good ones on here, like Short Round from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, also played in the Goonies as Data. It was actually his brother that went and auditioned for Indiana Jones. And because it was his older brother that auditioned, but because the auditions happened after school, the actor who would go on to become Short Round or Data followed his brother to the audition because they walked home from school together. And apparently, for whatever reason, somebody thought it would be a good idea to test Data, and he winds up landing the nod. And if you're the older brother, what do you think?
Yeah.
Especially now with this latest Indiana Jones movie that came out, and they brought that character back, and that actor came back and reprised his role as Short Round. So the residual effect, you are now part of this iconic franchise in cinematic history. But if you're his older brother, how are you feeling, I wonder?
Salty as shit.
For real, right? You'd almost have to be. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I would have accepted that. But it's Hollywood, man.
Yeah.
Cutthroat, But make no mistake, I gotta believe that the family as a whole benefited greatly, regardless of who was portraying that character. I've gotta believe. Jean-Claude Van Damme was the original pick to play the Predator, the villain, the alien in Predator, before being replaced. I didn't know that. This is going to be its own. I feel like we almost got to do this next week as a deep dive with you, because this is right in your wheelhouse. Are you familiar with all of the controversies surrounding the actors who played in the Poltergeist movies, including Heather O'Rourke?
Mm-hmm.
So many cast members of the Poltergeist movies died that rumors spread that the production was cursed. And I feel like there's enough meat on the bone here. We could do a deep dive on this. You want to do this next week on Poltergeist?
Yeah.
There you go, folks. Next week, and it's been a long time since we've singled out a movie or a show and actually did a specific deep dive on this. Next week here on the program, a week before our 100th episode, we're gonna get a little dark, and we will talk about the curse of the Poltergeist movies, because this is something, and there is this. When Heather O'Rourke died, I remember that it happened in 1988, and it was right after the third movie had come out.
I think so.
Right after she filmed it, and I was so bothered by that because she was a young girl, beautiful young girl, and nobody really knew it. Because I watched Entertainment Tonight every night because I was so dialed in on Hollywood.
Yep.
Like, I needed to know this shit. I was so bothered when she died. Like, I really took a vested interest, and my mom had a subscription to People magazine, and she landed the cover like the week after she died, and I could not get enough information. And that's when I started hearing initially rumblings that there's something fucked up with the production of these movies. And you can go back to the first one, with Joe Beth Williams and Craig T. Nelson. That scene when she is, when she's screaming and there's all these skeletons around her, those are real fucking skeletons.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like, why would you do that?
Right.
Why would you do that?
Yeah,
You're filming this shit on Indian burial grounds. Next week here on Power Trip through the 80s, we are going to peel the curtain back and do a deep dive on the curse of the Poltergeist film. So that I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, me too.
All right, what do they got here? They talk about the casting changes that they made from Back to the Future 1 to 2 and 3. More specifically, the roles of Crispin Glover and Claudia Wells. The dad McFly, George McFly, and Michael J. Fox's girlfriend in the movie. We know that Claudia Wells would be replaced by Elizabeth Shue, who we saw in The Karate Kid and Cocktail and Adventures in Babysitting. I feel like those are her big 3 films.
Yeah.
And then the relatively unknown Jeffrey Weissman would replace Crispin Glover, but his scenes are very far away and very minimal.
Yeah.
They put the prosthetics to make him look like Crispin Glover, but any scene that he's in, he's either hanging upside down or he's like in the background of that particular scene. I think he has maybe 3 lines in this thing, but he's older version of himself, so he was able to disguise his voice a little bit, like he was an old man. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that and the big switch during filming of the first movie from Eric Stoltz over to Michael J. Fox has become legendary unto itself.
Yeah.
Have you seen any of the scenes of Eric Stoltz playing Marty McFly?
That's one of those roles that Michael J. Fox was in. That is his role. I can't think of anybody who could do it and make it what he did.
No. And if you go back, like I have here, like the 25th anniversary multi-disc special presentation of the Back to the Future trilogy that has all the behind-the-scenes featurettes and makings of documentaries. there is a section where they do have Eric Stoltz's scenes in there.
Really?
Yeah. And holy fuck. I'm taking nothing away from Eric Stoltz as an actor. He's a good actor. His portrayal of Rocky Dennis in Mask,
The best.
you won't find a better performance.
Mm-mm.
You'd be hard pressed to. What he was just way too serious of an actor to play the Marty McFly character. Like, they originally wanted Michael J. Fox, but because of his obligations to Family Ties, he was not able to make that schedule work, so they went with Eric Stoltz. But he was such a more dramatic actor, you know what I mean? Like Mask and some kind of Wonderful. Like, these are dramatic roles. He was not perceived as a comedy actor, and just the dynamic, like with him and Doc Brown, and like, it just wasn't there.
Yeah.
Insert Michael J. Fox, whose schedule miraculously opened up after like 6 weeks of shooting with Eric Stoltz. Bob Zemeckis had to make a very difficult choice that wound up, costing the studio several $1 million because they had to go back and reshoot these scenes.
Right.
That takes time. But I feel like the end result, the residual effect, and to this day, there's Back to the Future cons and all these other things. It really has become one of the more iconic franchises in American cinematic history. But it almost wasn't.
Yeah.
Eric Stoltz would have been the reason for that.
Now, do you think he goes to these Back to the Future cons?
I do not. I think he steers way clear of that. Because right here on top is Eric Stoltz, and there's Michael J. Fox.
Yeah.
But you can just tell by the look on his face just how serious he took that role. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But where Michael J. Fox is like, what the fuck? Eric Stoltz is like, what the fuck? Yeah, they have a whole section here on just Back to the Future shit. But, yeah, some of the more iconic and noteworthy rumors, news, or innuendo about what goes on, but it really did spawn next week's episode. And again, we are going to be doing this deep dive on Poltergeist, so that's going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
As we start to wind this down, is there anything? Do you know of any stories or urban legends that have taken place where you're like, wow, that could have really put that show or that movie in a whole different frame of mind?
I would say the two biggest ones that I remember are like The Curse of Poltergeist and The Three Men and the Baby Ghost.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the ones now, as you talked about some of them, like, yeah, okay, I can remember that. Like, I do remember hearing about the Munchkin and the Wizard of Oz, and what was the other one that I remembered hearing, but I was so young when I watched it, it wasn't something I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Or because a young girl, all we were interested in were them ruby slippers.
I can understand that.
That is all we cared about.
Well, and that's just this list. You're looking, you talk about movies in Hollywood and all this shit. It goes back to the early 1900s, back before there was sound. Everything was black and white. I gotta believe there's a hell of a lot more legendary stories, urban legends, that would completely blow our minds.
Oh, probably.
I feel like something like the Three Stooges or Laurel and Hardy or Abbott and Costello, these types of, even back before then, like Charlie Chaplin, the silent movies, that you've got to believe there was a lot of shenanigans going on.
Oh, yeah.
On the sets and things of this nature. So, I mean, this is one list here.
Yeah.
Actually, that could probably be its own podcast, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
What are you doing on Wednesdays? I kid. I kid. Christ, I've already occupied 3 days of your week.
I'm
Why
okay
not
with it.
4? Fuck it. Oh, well, listen. Let me go ahead and make mention of this real quick. I know we did this during the live stream and have alluded to it in various ways, but I want to bring everybody up to speed. If you are not in the loop and you did not tune in for the big announcement this past weekend, why I don't know. That's completely your loss. But
Yeah, it's a you problem.
it really is a you problem. I wanted to share with you some of the new items here on pfcholidays.printify.me. I told you I was in the process of another major drop of merchandise, and the snow globes here are one of the latest arrivals. We have a couple new tree skirts, a couple more ornaments available, some new stockings. Well, I would like to direct your attention to the ugly type of apparel. Now, this one is for the hot tag. These are, this is offered as like pajama pants. There are shirts available also. Yeah, creepy soup. As you can see, if you get real dialed in, be like, oh yeah, there's the creepy soup logo right in there. So, we do have all kinds of merchandise available right now at pfcholidays.printify.me for all of our Christmas themed apparel. I mean, sleep pants, and coffee mugs, and candles, and all of the gizmos and gadgets and things of this nature. So go over there and check that out, or pfcstore.printify.me. That's our main store for all of our shows here, not just Christmas stuff, but all of our great designs and logos and things of that nature. So go over there and check that out. pfcnetwork.net is our official website, and you can stay tuned to our socials on Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter. X, whatever the fuck they call it now.
Yeah.
Twix is what I actually call it.
Twig.
But be that as it may, not the candy bar,
Yeah.
just this bullshit website, social
Now, real
media
quick,
site.
do you use Twitter a lot?
I'm starting to incorporate it more.
Okay. Or X, whatever.
It's so goddamn toxic. It is so toxic. If I'm feeling salty and I'm looking to poke and prod somebody, that's where I'll go because it's real easy, real easy. But I have been sharing more of the links and more of the ads and things of this nature. You can find us over there at PFC Network, I believe, is my handle over there. TikTok, I'm going to start incorporating more into. I haven't really done a whole lot with TikTok here in recent weeks. I really need to. Because I realize that's where the trend's going. I am not on Instagram. I have kind of stayed away from Instagram, but I kind of feel like I'm going to have to. I'm hearing more and more and more people are switching over to Instagram, and I guess I'm going to have to follow suit just to get our name out there on as many platforms as I possibly can. So we'll see what happens in the new year in terms of launching more social media awareness or what have you, because I'm not going to get into it here, but we talked last week during the conference call. I've got plans, I've got goals, I got things that are in the works, and diving more into social media right now is like, I know it's important for advertising, but it's not my priority.
Right.
There's other things that have taken priority here, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, and because I would like to do like a creepy soup, everything. I know Jenny created the TikTok, and well, I don't know if I still have it because I know that they like deleted a bunch of accounts, but I haven't used it. You know the show Lucifer?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well when Fox canceled it, and they canceled it on one hell of a cliffhanger. And there was like the whole big Twitter thing
Uproar.
where the Save Lucifer hashtag. And that's probably the most active I've ever been, because that was like, my husband and I watched that every week. And I was like, there's no way they could not. Well, they ended up, Netflix picked it up, and I think they kept it for 2 or 3 seasons. But so I can just imagine, like, when I die and they're going over everything I've ever done, they're going to be like, well, we can't let you in here because Save Lucifer? What the hell? Like, we were crazy. Like, we had bought shirts that had the hashtag Save Lucifer. And I wore that to work and got asked if I was a devil worshiper.
Sure.
Yeah, it was, yeah. Yeah, I was a part of that campaign, and that's probably the last time I have been on Twitter or X, whatever it's.
Missing much. I don't mind telling you. Like I said, toxic as fuck. I hate it. And the only reason why I do go on there, I told you, is either to share whatever or because I'm feeling salty and I wanna pick a fight with somebody.
Yeah.
That's, and I don't do that often, but like if there are, I got nothing else going on and I'm tired of looking at paint dry.
Yeah.
At 3:30 in the morning, what the fuck am I going to do? Let's go piss some people off over on Twitter. And I always target the IWC, the Internet Wrestling Community. You want to talk about, yeah, I'm not going to get into that. We'll save that for the hot tag. But it's real easy to ruffle feathers with the IWC. All you got to do is say your particular brand of wrestling or your favorite wrestler is actually the drizzling shits. That's all I got to say. And then it's like, here we go. Let's roll.
I love it.
Mm-hmm. I can be pretty funny at times. Sometimes. But what's not funny is that when we come back here next week, we are doing a deep dive on the curse of Poltergeist. So until then, we appreciate everybody tuning in this week. Jill, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be a part of this, and looking forward to next week's show. Go out this week. Be awesome to yourselves and to each other, and we'll see you next Wednesday here on Power Tripping Through the 80s on the PFC Entertainment Network.